Today, I am going to talk about the perfection of generosity, which is the first paramita. And of course, I'm talking about it because this is the Christmas season or the holiday season, and it's traditional to give gifts this time of year. And I'm going to start with a quote from Yalwan Karmapa here, which uh, came to mind when I was preparing this talk. Compassion arises within our mind and therefore is like a seed that is present within the mind. Like any seed, it has to be nurtured. In the case of compassion, we nurture it in several ways. One is to reflect on it, to direct our minds to it. Another is to take joy in compassion. A physical seed needs many things: soil, water, and sun. And these not only need to be provided, but to be provided in the right way. For example, when you water a seed, you cannot simply dump a gallon of water on it for once and for all. If you have to water it you have to water it gently, and therefore it takes more time and more effort. In the same way of caring for the seed of compassion within us, we need to be patient and persistent. If we do not take proper care of the seed of compassion, the seed will either not ripen or will ripen in an unhealthy way. It is important to recognize that love, concern, and affection are not optional. We do not need any reason to offer love and affection. It is possible to have love without prices and without conditions. And we do not need any further compensation beyond just giving our love. Our love is an infinitely renewable resource for the well being of society and for our own personal growth as well. It is crucial that we learn to love without needing a reason or reward. We could say that it is equally important in the long run for our own good and the good of others that we initially be kind to ourselves. And so the reason why I read that was, first of all, this is in relationship to the Tonglen exercise that I taught recently, which was about learning to love and be kind to ourselves. So that we initially have to be kind and generous to ourselves, but not in a selfish or egotistical way. That at Christmas time or the holiday season, take your pick which way you want to refer to it, um, we also frequently buy gifts for ourselves. And really, the most important gift we can give to ourselves is to be kind to ourselves, to just, without any strings attached, love ourselves unconditionally and just let that be. And and then, of course, to look at other people through the eyes of gratitude. That where we are today is the result of the efforts of so many countless people, whether it be our family, our friends, the people at the stores that you go to buy the presents that you give, and so on and so forth. That there is so much to feel gratitude towards. And gratitude is the seed of happiness. And it also helps us to develop compassion for other people, for what they have done, for what they have experienced. And also, it allows us to be a little kinder to them if they're having a bad day, a bad week, a bad year, or whatever. And this year is coming to an end less than 2 weeks from now. And I think most people are going to be very pleased to say goodbye to it. But on the other hand, if we look with gratitude at what we have learned from the difficulties that we have faced this year, that this can help us transform our feelings and our attitudes and so forth. So, with that introduction to generosity, now there are 4 types of generosity that are discussed in Buddhism. The first is the giving of material objects. And this would be, first of all, to offer to the 3 jewels. And it's termed generosity when we are helping other beings that are in need. So this is an important point. And if you look at the news at all, there are a lot of people right now that are in need of material generosity. My mailbox, both my email box and my snail mail mailbox. I live out in the country and I have a mailbox. They are filled with appeals for money from a wide variety of organizations that all do meritorious work, whether it be working with the homeless, working with the environment, working with, let's see, there's one working with Doctors Without Borders and the Sierra Club, and CARE, and on and on and on. And it's fine to make offerings to those organizations. It's also fine to make offerings to individuals. If you see somebody on the street, I know recently I was in St. Paul, and there was a woman with some children, I think 1 or 2 children there, and she was out asking for money, and I gave her money. My neighbor, his barn burned down a year and a half ago, and there was a crowdfunding site set up, and I gave money to him for that, and on and on and on. But it's better yet to offer to the 3 jewels. I'm not saying don't do one, do the other, but offering to the 3 jewels is very, very, very appropriate, important, because it is the 3 jewels that offer long-term relief from suffering. Whereas when you help some person, or even the Environmental Defense Fund and so on and so forth, that these are more short-term in terms of the benefits. The goal of Buddhism is to get out of samsara, to liberate beings forever, completely from suffering. And so this is a more long-term goal and a more important goal. So when we're offering to the 3 jewels, it's important to have pure offerings, offerings that are, if they're physical offerings, pure, appropriate, clean, fresh, good quality, and so forth. I remember when they were filling Rinpoche's stupa out at Karma Ling that I made some offerings, and one of them was some saffron. And I ordered it on Amazon and had it sent out right to Karma Ling. And as soon as I pushed the buy button, I realized what I had done was offer a relatively inexpensive saffron. There was a lot of it. It was not an inexpensive purchase, but I quickly went and ordered a much higher quality saffron of the same amount and sent that out to the stupa. So it's important to have good quality. And it's also important to offer things that are meaningful to you. That if you offer things that you don't need anymore, that's not okay. Needless to say, money is a very appropriate offering. I don't think any of us don't need money anymore, so it's something that is valuable to us. And the three jewels need money to keep running, whether it be to pay for heat, lights, insurance, and maintenance, and so forth, salaries. It's something that is very useful. But something that is meaningful doesn't have to be necessarily valuable. I remember one time being at an empowerment, and it went on for 2 or 3 days. And at the end of the empowerment, then people lined up to make offerings to the Vajra Master. And it went on smoothly, and all of a sudden the Vajra Master held a baseball hat up and said to everybody in the audience, "This is a very good offering." And it was obvious to me that the Vajra Master, A, was clairvoyant, and B, knew that this man was giving up something that he was really attached to, that it was meaningful to him in that way, that he was giving up attachment. So this is an important point with the offerings. And of course, when you make offerings or you're giving to people or organizations that help beings, help the earth, and so forth, the complete way to do it is to do it without any attachment for expecting them to use it a certain way and so forth. You can say this is for a building fund, or this is for that, or this is for prayers for so and so. But once you do that, you have to let go. You have to let go. At that point, it is no longer yours. You have given it away. And so give it away completely. So it's important to avoid impure offerings to the three jewels. And these would include things like offering stolen objects, forcing someone to make an offering that they would not want to part with. One time, many years ago, this was before the Karmapa talked about wanting all his monks and nuns, monasteries, centers, and so forth to be vegetarian. This was when traditionally the Tibetan Buddhists would eat meat. And this was at a center where there was a Rinpoche visiting. And of course, meat was being served. And one of the students said, well, we're going to kill the animal enemy anyway, why not offer it? And before you butcher an animal. And of course, that would be inappropriate. Now, we do offer the meals, but now, of course, Karmapa has said that he wants his monks, nuns, and centers, monasteries, and nunneries to be vegetarian, that it is very possible, very practical to have an adequate diet without having meat included in the diet. And if you are a layperson, to try to reduce your intake of meat at least a little bit. So things that would be impure objects to give to sentient beings, again, would be stolen objects. Things used to kill, like giving a bow and arrow during hunting season, a gun. Also, things used to commit suicide. Suicide is considered the same as killing. And even though the person is maybe suffering tremendously, helping them commit suicide is an act of impure generosity. We want to have a pure attitude when we make offerings to the three jewels. So impure attitudes would be offering to gain status, to show off, to embarrass someone else by making a bigger offering than they do, to gain popularity, and so forth. In other words, any and all egotistical reasons that we might have attached to making an offering. A pure attitude for making offerings to the three jewels would be having sincerity, having devotion. And devotion here would be deep respect, trust, confidence, and to do it with gestures of respect, where you are going to be lowering your head as you're making the offering. Now, impure attitudes for generosity are expecting to be paid back or receiving some service from that person, expecting gratitude, respect, honor, or being thought well of. Here, we're more interested in helping ourselves and our ego as much as we are helping others. So when we are giving to sentient beings, again, we want to be doing it with kindness and compassion, with respect, and wishing that this may not only benefit the recipient, but benefit all sentient beings. And then, whether it be an offering or a gift to sentient beings, dedicate the merit. This makes the action, you might say, indestructible, the merit from that action indestructible. Here is a quote from Khenpo Karthar Rinpoche in his book, Dharma Paths. Material giving is the first stage of training, and the principle is not how much we give, but how well and how completely we do it. Giving the proper objects to the proper recipients with the proper attitude, words, and gesture is more important than giving something extravagant, but lacking any of these essential features. And again, as human beings, confused, ordinary, sentient beings, we have a poverty mentality. And this goes back to that original reading or quote that I read, that we have to realize that we have tremendous riches within us, limitless love, limitless compassion, that we have a warm spot in our heart for ourselves and all beings, and that we can open that up and use it. And it is limitless, it cannot be exhausted. So the second type of generosity is giving protection or giving refuge from harm. So in terms of the three jewels, the Buddha, Dharma, and the Sangha, this means protecting sacred objects from harm, protecting practitioners from being disturbed, protecting the Sangha from disharmony. And this is actually both simple and complicated, but what comes to mind is a story that I came across on the internet. And it was about, I think this took place in Oakland, California, that a man lived in a neighborhood that was somewhat rough, shall we say. And the city had put up a barrier, or perhaps a better way to describe it is a little green space diagonally on a four-corner cross section, so people wouldn't be going through the neighborhood instead of staying on the main roads. And so on that little green space, people would dump all kinds of trash there. And he got fed up with this. And while he wasn't a Buddhist, he wasn't religious in any way, for some reason or another, he felt inspired, and he went to a store and brought back a statue of a Buddha, probably a concrete one made for being outside. You might say as a lawn ornament, most likely, because I'm sure it wasn't in a Buddhist store. And he put it there, and he fastened it in such a way that it could not be stolen. And something amazing happened, and that was a Vietnamese woman one day saw this, and she talked to her master, and the master approved what she was thinking, which was that this was a sacred object and it needed to be protected. And so she started going there and putting flowers by it, making offerings to it, saying prayers, and so forth. And soon other Vietnamese would come, and soon it was painted. Eventually, a small structure was built over it to protect it from the elements. The city of Oakland had a meeting and decided that they were going to have to remove this because this was not allowed by law. And The blowback was so much that they quickly tabled that proposal and it never came up again. And this statue is still there today. And I have seen pictures of people sitting on cushions on the street saying prayers to this statue that this man put up there just to try to clean up the neighborhood. The article that I read also said that the crime rate dropped dramatically in this area. Things like drug dealing, prostitution, and so on, that by protecting this sacred object, worshiping it, making offerings, and so forth, that it kind of cleaned up the neighborhood as well. So in the mundane world, protection, giving protection is protecting humans from illness. Hence, we get vaccinated and wear masks. Protecting from fear, from danger, from hunger, from all kinds of suffering. It can be as simple as just smiling, being kind, listening. There is all kinds of suffering in the world, and it's so easy to be kind, to listen, to smile. Now, listening doesn't mean that you sit with a compulsive talker for 3 hours, but at least listen a little bit. It's amazing, even when I go out with my robes, and that's what I wear when I go out, but even when I go out like that, when I go into a store, if I smile at the people coming out, or when I'm in the store, if I smile or say, even kind of say hello, that they usually respond very well. They are appreciative. I get a smile back. And of course, protecting animals from harm is important. That is also in this category, giving protection to sentient beings. And in this world today, domestic animals, especially those that are in farm settings, and I live out in a farm area here, it's really sad to see some of the conditions that domestic animals are kept under, and it's perfectly legal to do that. The third kind of generosity is giving the gift of Dharma. And this is partially related to the first one of making offerings to the three jewels. So giving the gift of Dharma is making the teachings available, which includes making offerings at support centers and lamas and teachings and so forth. When you are with other people, now we're not out to convert people, but on the other hand, if people ask you about Buddhism, what you practice, if you have a spiritual foundation, it's fine to talk to them about this. Keep it simple. Rinpoche would say, talk about the importance of compassion, the importance of loving kindness, and about Buddha nature, our inherent goodness, our inherent seed of Buddhahood. And if you know more than that, and the person that you are with is open, say a few words that might help remove their ignorance. Again, my personal experience is to keep things short, to avoid the glazed overlook on the face. And if they want to know more, they will ask a question. But don't be embarrassed about being a Buddhist. And again, to quote Rinpoche here, what counts is not how much we know, but how correctly we know it and how sincerely we use it to help others. And it's always good to have the best motivation, which is that we are doing this to benefit others rather than to show how much we know or what a good person we are or whatever. And again, always dedicate the merit. The last of the four types of generosity is giving loving kindness and tenderness. That's a word that Kempo Kartra uses in Dharma paths. So this means that you avoid any kind of behavior that harms beings. You're practicing non-harm, that you're extending this equally to all beings rather than picking out special beings and then ignoring the rest of them, or perhaps including most beings, but these particular ones here aren't worthy of or don't deserve any kind of kindness. So being kind, being nurturing and caring, these are really important. If we can keep these in mind, this is excellent. So I'm going to finish here with a quote of Rinpoche's. If loving kindness is in our hearts and we sincerely mean it, we will express it with our words and gestures. That will bring about warmth and friendship.